And now for something completely different, as the old Monty Python shows used to start. This dinky little thing is the Motorola Flipout. Go on, you'll never guess why it has this name. Yes, the keyboard flips. And more swivels really, but I guess the Motorola swivel would have sounded too rude. Swivels out to change it from a 67mm square to a 110mm by 67mm form factor. Conveniently, the way you can also best answer calls on this thing. So, bring. Hello, which doesn't look too bad, as you can see. Though curiously, you can't then hang up the call by closing the flip out. The swivel itself is the main unique selling point here, and it's pretty well made. Although even on this brand new unit, there was a millimetre or so of play if you pull very gently on the opposite corner. The dual form factor is a great idea, and it's just so much fun to keep swivelling the keyboard open and closed. It's just about a one-handed exercise, but you have to wonder how the flip out will fare after a year or two of daily use. The screen's small and quarter VGA, of course, but it is capacitive, so it works much like any other Android phone of the last year or so. Android 2.1 under the hood means that most apps work, albeit sometimes in cut down form. And joy of joys, Motorola has put in a transflective layer in the screen, at last recognising that people have a life in the fresh air and like using their technology outside. Kudos. Elsewhere, the hardware is kept simple. There's a power sleep button on the top there, a volume up and down, a loud speaker, and a micro USB data and charging port. There is a 3-megapixel camera on the back, but it's not up to much, and there's no flash. And this is a test video on the Motorola Flipout. There's no focusing, no quality, no resolution, no frame rate worth speaking about. But don't let some of the negatives put you off. Once you swivel open the 5-row keyboard and start tapping away with both thumbs, you'll smile. I guarantee it. The keys are nicely sculpted with good haptic feedback. The keyboard reminds me very much of that in the likes of the Nokia E71. And that's a compliment. There's a rather pointless D-pad down here too. Why do Android phone manufacturers bother? Specifications are excellent, screen aside. 512 megabytes of RAM, amazingly. Wi-Fi, GPS, 3G, even a 1000 mAh battery, which is more than I expected given the size of this thing. The home screen setup, you get 7 in all, of which the outer 2 are initially blank, is MotoBlur, Motorola's value-added widgets and apps on top of standard Android. Essentially, a Happenings app accepts your logins to the likes of MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, Picasa and Bebo, and then spins your friends' updates into a feed accessed through the home screen widget. You then scroll through updates one at a time. It's a bit laborious, but it's simple to use, and it's genuinely useful for anyone with contacts in multiple social networks. Provided you're not an utter Twitter addict, MotoBlur makes a decent social client for the man in the street. And it's very cool seeing people you know pop up on your home screen. Like this. Also included in MotoBlur is the integration of your social contacts into Android contacts. And you can watch as the pool is expanded and filled in with latest tweets or even Facebook status updates all neatly in place in each contact record. Pictures are synced in too, though you do have to choose to take in all from Twitter or all from Facebook, and so on. It's all or nothing from each service. In truth, MotoBlur just takes their social concepts hinted at in Android and takes them further. The integration is not total. You can't tap on a latest tweet in contacts and do anything with it, let alone be taken back to Happenings, but still, colour me a little impressed. There are other Motorola additions too, a bevy of widgets including Android hints and tips, contact quick tasks, weather and so on. And there are nice touches like the universal inbox and the way the apps menu also appears when you tap the home icon and you're already on the central home screen. Other than that, it's basic Android. You'll be very familiar with the apps and the menus. Do you know what? Despite the awful camera, despite my concerns over the swivel reliability, despite the fact that the screen's only quarter VGA, I really like the Flipout. It's got character. It can be taken out and used just about anywhere, and the keyboard is genuinely usable. Whether such a quirky little offering will succeed in the marketplace is another matter, of course, but the Flipout gets my blessing. You're looking at the long-awaited Nokia N8, the camera smartphone to beat all camera smartphones, and also the future device in which I'll be shooting this show, taken over from the trusty Samsung i910 and Nokia N86 in their last performance here. Knowing I'm a bit of a Symbian fan, you may be expecting a rose-tinted view of the N8, but rest assured, I found it wanting in several areas. But let's start with the positives. Just as Nokia's N95 opened up a new era of convergence across the world by building in lots of new tech into the one device. So the N8 blazes a number of new frontiers. Uniquely, it's pentaband 3G, so it will work at high speed anywhere in the world. There's USB on the go. You can plug in anything from a USB keyboard to a memory stick to a hard disk, and they'll work just as on your desktop. Amazing. There's Dolby Digital Plus and surround sound through HDMI TV. Here's the port on the top. There's the best camera ever put into a smartphone. I mean, ever. 12 megapixels, a huge sensor, xenon flash, lossless digital zoom, plus every other gadget ever put into any Nokia phone ever, all in the one fairly diminutive device. In this sense, it certainly reminds me a lot of the N95's arrival. The hardware is nicely styled with a curved or sloping sides, top and bottom, a unibody aluminium shell, plastic end caps top and bottom for hiding all the various radio antennae. The battery is standard but essentially fixed in place. See this URL if you're handy with a Torx screwdriver. The intention is you leave the battery in place iPhone style for the lifetime of the device. No more swapping around when the charge runs out, sadly. Slots for SIM and micro SD on the left, plus volume and zoom controls and a shutter button on the right, all nicely styled, metal detail, and they blend into the casing beautifully. There's a handy key lock too, brilliant for one-handed locking of the screen when putting the N8 back in your pocket. On the top is a 3.5mm audio and TV out socket, but for a really decent picture, of course, you'll want to connect up the HDMI with the supplied adapter. The N8 comes with some short demo clips in 720p and with Dolby 5.1 sound, so you can try all this out without having any pre-prepared content. The N8 screen impressed me having an anti-reflection layer under the glass, meaning that the OLED display suffers far less outdoors than the displays on the likes of the Google Nexus 1 and HTC Desire. It's capacitive, of course, and just less than 3.5 inches, and noticeably smaller and slimmer than that on many of the Android phones I've tried, or indeed the iPhone. This does result in the N8 feeling more like a phone than a tablet, helped by Symbian and S60 being at heart a one-handed interface. Certainly when entering text and portrait mode, you're given a standard phone-like predictive T9 keypad, which works rather well for old-school phone users. In landscape mode, you get a virtual QWERTY, of course, and there's word completion and prediction available, though it's nowhere near in the same league as that on the iPhone, which remains the gold standard here. On the surface, not a lot's changed in terms of the UI from S60 5th edition we've seen over the last few years, but there is a big reduction in the old single tap, double tap confusion. Connection dialogues have been reduced, and many relevant list items can now be long pressed to bring up context sensitive options. Very neat. Syncing with the cloud on the N8 is as quirky as ever. It's either go all out with Microsoft Exchange built into Mail here, or dig deep into settings to set up ObviSync with Nokia's servers. The big improvements have been under the hood here. Symbian 335 megabytes of free RAM, a 250 megabyte system disk, a 16 gigabyte mass memory, a corner of which provides virtual memory for the OS if you work it really hard. There's a blisteringly fast graphics co-processor, all of which means that the N8 is a joy to navigate around, or at least as much a joy as Symbian's touch adaptation ever gets. There's a visual multitasking, so you can see what all the running apps are up to, and there are 3 home screens of widgets, but I'm always forgetting what's where, and I prefer to stick to just the one. The big selling point of the N8 is, of course, its camera. I know megapixels aren't everything, but when they're backed up by a sensor the same size as in many standalone cameras and a proper xenon flash, then it's wise to sit up and pay attention. Here are just some of the snaps that Rafe and I have taken with the N8. This last xenon lit one shows just how much detail is lit and captured, even in complete darkness. Try that with an XS1. The N8 camera is also very fast, a tenth of a second to focus in good light and shot-to-shot times of only a second or so. The only fly in the ointment is there's no camera glass protection, meaning constant checking and wiping before any really important photos. 720p video capture, high depth of field, hopefully good audio recording. There's a microphone facing me and there's also a microphone facing away with intelligent digital zoom. So you should get full 720p quality, even though you're zoomed in at 3 times, unlike most other video camera phones. There's also high depth of field due to the large sensor and large optics, meaning that the horizon's in focus, and without doing anything or worrying about continuous autofocus or tapping the screen, even down to about 45-50 centimeters, this grass is pretty crisp. And then up again, pretty smooth frame rate as well, high bit rate. If you swing round, you can see items in the medium foreground still in focus. My only worry is the exposed camera glass, which means that slight particles of dust or grease will give you lens flare effects when shooting into the sun, more than you'd otherwise get on a covered glass. The Photos app has multi-touch and is a great and fast way to browse through your media. Again, confusingly, actually including videos, even though there's a separate videos application. But there's one caveat: Nokia hasn't included any way to upload your photos and videos to online services. For this, you'll need to grab the free Pixel pipe from the Obby store. But this should really have been in the firmware out of the box. There's a photo upload in Nokia's half-hearted web runtime-based social client currently for Twitter and Facebook. But the upload resamples the images down so far that Nokia might just as well not have bothered. In fact, social itself is slow and clunky and uses a ridiculously small display font in here. Just ignore it and go install the truly excellent third-party Gravity client, like I did. Also missing from the usual Nokia app set is podcasting, so users have to make do with this freeware but still in beta podcatcher. I'd rather have the real thing, Nokia. Music playback is stellar though. The mono speaker on the back is loud and clear. There's even an FM transmitter for playing back over your car stereo. The promised next-gen web browser is also still not here yet, and the N8 currently has the old web, plus a smidgen of multi-touch for zooming in and out. What's here is logically laid out and largely working there. The Obby Store client is complete rewrite, faster, smoother than before. The email client here is slowish and not bad. And there's even a home screen widget so that you can keep up to date with incoming emails directly. Obby Map still doesn't have multi-touch out of the box, but that's imminent in an update too. And the existing 3.4 still works brilliantly to give quality voice sat-nav virtually anywhere in the world. Updates to apps, to Nokia Social, to the store client, to the overall firmware, all now handled over the air where possible. No reinstallation, no data restoration needed. So I'm hoping for a smooth update right over the next few months while Nokia add and update the N8 package. Quite apart from being able to capture and edit full 720p video, there are a number of titles in the ever-improving Obby Store that take full advantage of the graphics power of the N8. Here's GT Racing, for example, with iPhone-like smoothness and frame rates. Oh, and Angry Birds. But let's not get too distracted. For every little omission that annoys me on the N8, I found an inclusion that pleases me just as much. For example, this glorious screensaver that provides a gentle illuminated clock all the time, even through the night, and with the magic of OLED, it seems to have no real battery impact. Talking of which, yes, the 1200 mAh BL40 battery is kind of fixed. But with the OLED screen and default black themes and with the power optimizations of Symbian 3 plus auto brightness on the display, the N8 seems to get through each day of use without major drama. Maybe I shouldn't be worried at all. Is this the best Nokia smartphone ever made? Probably. Is it the best camera-toting phone in the world? Definitely. Should existing Android or iPhone owners switch to the N8? Well, only if you're really lusting after the camera. Should existing Nokia S60 and Symbian users with an investment in apps and experience, should they be eyeing up the N8 as a way to gain every cutting-edge gadget and the latest OS while keeping the familiar layout and the best of the S60 UI? Yes, this is the Nokia N8.